The sovereign effect, the architecture of absolute command. Movement 1, the threshold of authority. The rain over London didn't just fall, it hammered against the pavement like a rhythmic warning. Elias stood under the obsidian black awning of the Grand Ethelgard, a hotel that didn't just house the wealthy, it categorized them. To the common man, this was a fortress of gold and marble. To Elias, it was a psychological laboratory. He adjusted the weight of his overcoat, feeling the invisible crown settle onto his brow with the cold precision of a diamond blade. The architect's final words before Elias left the library were etched into his frontal lobe. The world is not made of atoms, Elias. It is made of perceptions. If you do not define who you are the moment you cross the threshold, the world will define you as a servant. Elias didn't walk toward the revolving glass doors. He waited. He utilized the environmental anchor technique. He stood perfectly still, letting the doorman, a man trained to spot old money from a mile away, process his presence. Most guests hurried inside to escape the rain, showing their submission to the elements. Elias remained in the storm, unbothered, his body language radiating a terrifying level of comfort in discomfort. The doorman, a veteran named Silas, felt a prickle at the back of his neck. He saw a man who didn't look like a billionaire, but who felt like a disaster. Silas didn't just open the door, he stepped aside with a bow that was 3 degrees deeper than required by the hotel's manual. Elias had already begun to annex the territory. Movement 2. The Immovable Object. The lobby of the Ethelgard was a sea of frantic motion. Bellhops hurried with luggage, frantic tourists clutched maps, and businessmen barked into encrypted phones. Elias stepped into the center of the marble floor and performed the Immovable Object maneuver. He stopped. He didn't look for the check-in desk. He didn't reach for his wallet. He simply stood in the middle of the chaos, his eyes fixed on a point in the distance that didn't exist. This was strategic silence applied to physical movement. In a room where everyone is moving, the one who stays still becomes the gravitational center. Slowly, the noise began to dampen. A concierge, then a floor manager, then a security guard all found their eyes drifting toward the silent figure in the charcoal suit. By refusing to act like a guest, Elias forced the environment to treat him like a sovereign. He was utilizing the scarcity of action. A senior concierge, a woman named Elena who had served royalty, approached him. Usually she waited for guests to come to her, but Elias had created a social vacuum that she felt a desperate subconscious need to fill. "Sir," she whispered, her voice tinged with respect she hadn't yet rationalized. "How may I assist you this evening?" Elias didn't look at her immediately. He gave her 3 seconds of his silence, the status tax. When he finally turned his head, his movement was slow, feline, and deliberate. "Elena," he said, reading her name tag but making it sound like a decree. "I am not here for a room. I am here for the atmosphere. I find the lobby lacking in discipline tonight." It was a validation strike. By criticizing the environment but speaking to her as an equal in that criticism, he instantly moved her from staff to confidant. Elena's posture straightened. She looked around the lobby with newfound disgust for the other guests. She was now Elias's agent, and he hadn't even checked in. Movement 3. The Mirror of Subservience. Elias moved to the hotel's Midnight Lounge, a bar where a single glass of scotch cost more than a month's rent for most. He sat at a corner table, but he didn't lean back. He occupied the chair with high-status posture mastery, spine straight but relaxed, hands visible and still. A waiter approached, his face a mask of exhaustion. He had been serving arrogant tycoons all night. Elias performed a cold scan. He saw the tension in the waiter's jaw, the resentment leak. He saw the way the waiter kept his eyes on the floor, a submission pattern. "The ice here is too loud, isn't it?" Elias asked softly. The waiter froze. It was an absurd statement, but it was delivered with such emotional domination that the waiter actually paused to listen to the clinking of glasses. I suppose so, sir," stammered the waiter. "You're tired of the noise," Elias continued, his voice dropping into a hypnotic bass tonality. "You're tired of people who think money buys them the right to be loud. You and I, we prefer the silence." Elias was using the mirror trap. He was reflecting the waiter's internal frustration back to him, but framing it as a shared elite trait. He was giving the waiter a superior identity. The effect was instantaneous. The waiter's eyes brightened. He was no longer a servant. He was a co-conspirator in a world of silence. For the rest of the night, Elias's glass was never empty, and no other guest could get the waiter's attention. Elias had bought his loyalty with words, not tips. Movement 4. The Sovereign's Judgment. The sovereign effect was tested an hour later. A man named Sterling, a venture capitalist known for his loud suits and louder ego, marched into the lounge. He was the definition of crude domination. He snapped his fingers at the waiter Elias had just converted. The waiter looked at Elias. Elias didn't say a word. He simply raised one eyebrow, a micro-expression of dismissal. The waiter, now anchored to Elias's calm authority, ignored Sterling's snap and continued to polish a glass near Elias's table. Sterling was furious. He marched over to Elias. "Do you know who I am? I've spent more in this bar tonight than you make in a year." Elias looked at him with total detachment. He didn't look up, he looked through him. This was the ghosting technique. By refusing to acknowledge Sterling's status, Elias effectively neutralized it. "You are loud," Elias said, his voice as cold as the ice in his glass. "And in this room, noise is the ultimate sign of a servant. You think your money gives you power. It only gives you a megaphone for your insecurities." The lounge went silent. Sterling's face turned a violent shade of crimson. He raised a hand as if to strike the table, but Elias utilized the preemptive command. He stood up, slowly, filling the space with his presence. "If you break the silence of this room again," Elias whispered, stepping into Sterling's intimate zone, "I will make sure this is the last room in London that ever welcomes you. Sit down, be quiet, or leave." Elias was bluffing, but in the world of dark psychology, a bluff delivered with 100% conviction is reality. Sterling, faced with a man who seemed to possess a power that bypassed money, crumbled. He sat down at a far table, his head bowed. The predator had been declawed by a sovereign. Movement 5. The Architect's Shadow. Elias returned to the lobby. Elena, the concierge, was waiting with a gold keycard. "The royal suite has been prepared for you, sir. The previous guest was asked to relocate. We felt your presence deserved a more appropriate setting." Elias took the key. He didn't thank her. To thank her would have been to acknowledge that she had done him a favor, which would lower his status. He simply nodded, a recognition of service. As the elevator climbed to the top floor, Elias looked at his reflection in the gold-leafed mirrors. He saw the protégé, but he also saw the shadow of the architect behind him. "The sovereign effect," Elias whispered. "It wasn't about being a king. It was about making sure everyone else felt like they were lucky to be in your kingdom." He stepped into the suite. The lights of London stretched out below him like a field of diamonds waiting to be harvested. He was no longer just a student of the shadows. He was the one who cast them. The shadow mind had found its home in the heart of the city, and the architect, somewhere in his dark library, finally stopped watching. The masterpiece was complete.